Hey guys, in this video we're going to do something really stupid, but it's for a reason, so bear with me on this, okay? So in this video, we're calling this one newbie versus fifth scale. And here's our fifth scale, and I'm going to play the part of the newbie this time because it still needs to be a little bit controlled. I can't just turn somebody loose with that and expect things to be okay. So I'm going to play the part of newbie, and the idea is, look guys, these things weigh a lot. 30 plus pounds with the batteries in it, and they travel pretty quick, and there's a lot of inertia. And the thing is people find one of these, they say, man, I've got to have this car, but it's their first RC car and they've never had the chance to build up the skill set for how to drive and control them. And without the reflexes, when panic sets in, people have a tendency to lock up and it's over. So in this video, we're going to pretend that it's over because I'm going to run this straight into, now down the block, there's a phone pole with a couple of really serious guide wires that are coming down off of it. It just goes against everything in me, but I'm going to point this right at it and pull the trigger, and we're going to see what happens. Hopefully it'll destroy the front end on it, and we'll be able to go ahead and rebuild it. Now I know that's kind of uncool to intentionally break something, but like I say, this is for a purpose. Now let's say you get one of these and you do wipe out the front end. If you've never wrenched on one of these, that can be a real daunting situation, and a lot of people will just put it in a box and set it aside and, well, I'll get to it later. But for the money you spend on one of these things, that can just kill your interest in the hobby just like that. And that's not cool. So this video is supposed to show you, demonstrate as it were, how easy it is to actually work on these and how simple it is to rebuild them. Even if you're going all the way down changing the chassis, it's really not that hard, guys. It's really a lot simpler than it looks like. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and pile this into something and hopefully do some substantial damage so we can actually get with the rebuild and all that stuff and get things going. So let's take it outside and let's get started. Check this out. All right, here we go, guys. Let's do this. Oh, perfect hit. Nice. That should have broke some stuff. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, definitely wrecked some stuff up front. Perfect. Well, let's drag it back. See what we can find. Well, there it is. And we did what we set out to do. We've got some substantial damage. So we'll get you down and close, we'll show you what it is, and we will go through a thorough inspection just to make sure we know everything that's broken in here. The top plate looks pretty good and the brace looks good, but let's check the servo. There's definitely internal damage there. Can you hear the clicking? Yeah, that's bad. The radio box definitely took a hit there. Most of that's missing. Oh, the arm here, that's broke. The standoff, it's broken for the shock absorber. The arm is surprisingly in pretty good shape though. It's got some scarring, but nothing appears to be broken. The connecting point for the sway bars broke. There's the other end of that there. The steering linkage, that's bent out of shape and heavily distorted, so that'll have to be replaced. The hinge pin bracket, that's distorted on the back, and on the front side here it's completely destroyed, ripped in two. That's not a good thing. And up here on the shock tower, you can see where the standoff had egged at. It had been loose for a little while, so that should be usable though. I don't see a problem there. So let's go ahead and pull this thing apart. Alright, first thing we want to do is get this tire and wheel out of the way just so we can disconnect the arm. So let's set that aside. We'll disconnect the steering linkage here. Although that bracket's bent, the linkage itself is still good on the top here. So go ahead and set that out of the way. Nice. Let's go ahead and take that broken piece off of the sway bar. Definitely a bad part. Set that aside. Let's go ahead and remove the standoff. Get that off. These can be a little long-winded, guys, but they come off easy enough. There you go. That's the broken one. Look at the damage. Not good. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and remove the servo horn. So we're going to have to get the connecting rods detached here. I'm going to go ahead and put the screws right back in place just so I can keep track of these two. Nice. There we go. Second rod. Put the screw back. Beautiful. Now we'll go ahead and take the servo horn off. There we go. Now let's pop that servo out. Back these out. There's 4 screws here, and that should loosen the whole thing up. There we go. Up easy does it. There's wiring on this, so be careful. There you go. And of course we're going to have to disconnect it from the receiver, so we'll go ahead and unplug that. And we're going to have to change that whole apparatus anyway. There you go. It looks okay on the outside, but it's definitely got issues inside. On this piece here, we're going to go ahead and remove that top linkage. That broken end definitely needs to be repaired. So we'll go ahead and twist that off. There we go. We'll back this out. That should relieve that, so it'll come right out of the slot. There we go, just like that. Go ahead and put this nut and bolt back in place just so we don't lose it. The more bolts we can keep in their proper place, the easier it will be for reassembly. So I try to do that as much as I can. Down in here, we got to get that stub out of there. And that's for the sway bar. We'll pop that out. We'll be putting a new one on here once we get our parts. There it is. So that's the other part of that sway bar connector. Now we'll go ahead and peel out the receiver. Get that out of there. And that's just stuck down with 2-sided tape and comes out pretty easy. And that's a 6-channel Spectrum receiver, and the receiver's still good. It was working. Alright, so let's stand the car up. We need access to the bottom here. There we go. Now there's 4 screws here that hold the servo tray and radio mount in place. So we'll take all 4 of these out. And these are just in plastic, nice and slow does it. You don't need to hurry on this. Even though the part's not going back in the car, it's just good practice to do this stuff slowly. There we go. There's the damaged part. The servo box is still good, but the radio box is definitely junk. Okay, on the front here we've got 2 bolts that have to come out, and these always get packed up with dirt and debris, especially when you bash hard. So make sure we get all this dirt and debris out so we can get our drill head in there. And then we got to back these 2 out. These are a little long-winded, they're long. These are the 2 that pinch that hinge pin support in there. There we go. Be patient with it, guys. Be patient. Now that'll swivel out of the way and you can get that hinge pin bracket right off. Now this is damaged, so it takes a little coercion, but you can get it. There you go. Just a little extra pressure does the job. That thing's really messed up. Okay, let's take these screws out of the bottom here to relieve the differential. We'll pull these 2. And that'll detach the whole differential on the bottom side. We'll still have to get the top plate. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to need some access. Let's go ahead and brace this up. Don't need it rocking on us while we're trying to do stuff here. All right. So there's two in the front of the top plate. We're going to go ahead and back those out. Sorry about the camera angle, guys. I didn't catch that. Here we go. And then we're going to go ahead and disconnect that steering linkage so we can get that bent arm off of the top. So there's one screw on this side because the arm's already off of this because it's bent. The other one, there's two screws. You got to relieve the arm and then take the actual bar itself off. There we go. And it should slide right out. There it is. Look at the damage on that. Ain't that beautiful? So now we're going to go after the servo saver to get the top plate off. So there's two of these, and you got to hold them from the bottom with a wrench to get that top piece off. These can be a little bit tricky, but they're not too bad. So once you get the top loose, spin that one out right there, and then across from it there's another one. And of course you have to hold these two by the bottom to get those things to back out. Here we go. Nice. And then of course the one in the center there has to come as well. That's to the chassis brace, and that's the last piece holding that whole assembly together. And now we're going to pop that plate off and everything on the front's loose. There we go. Want to keep those grommets in there. Those are necessary. Okay, and just like that, the whole front clip is off of the car. Pretty simple really when you think about it. Okay, with the car out of the way, we need to get this rear hinge pin bracket off, and I'm just going to use a new wrench here just so I don't strip it out, and just break these loose a little bit, and then I'll go after it with the nut driver and we'll go ahead and pull that out. So will you get the Allen wrench out, and we'll go ahead and back these out. These can be a little long-winded as well, guys. Just be patient. There we go. And that will drop everything. And now you can take a look at the damage this thing's actually gained. That is anything but straight. So with the cups out, take a look at this. It didn't look that bad, but look how bad it actually is. So let's go ahead and get our parts out that are still good. The radio's good there. The servo horn and the arms are still good there. So we'll set those aside. The hinge pins, those are also good. We'll set those aside. And there's everything that's bad. So here's the new parts that we picked up for the car. And of course the stock numbers are all in the manual, guys, so you can just look in the manual and find out what these part numbers are. You can go anywhere you want, eBay, straight to Horizon Hobby, whatever, and order these. So let's put this thing back together, and let's start with the hinge pin braces. These are the caps, and there are front and rears, and they're marked F for front and R for rear. But you want to make sure and separate those out because they have different geometry. You want to use the fronts on the front. So sort those out first. There we go. Slide the rear ones out of the way. And we'll go ahead and assemble the braces. Just like that. Both sides. Kind of nice. Brand new stuff goes together so nice. Go ahead and set it on there. Line up your pins and get your screw started. We want to have one of these on just to control the arm that's on there already. It'll help hold things together as we start our assembly here. Torque all this stuff by hand, guys. There we go. Now we want to go ahead and feed the hinge pin down into that pocket. Make sure your drive shaft's in and everything so that everything's ready to go. There you go. And we're just going to test fit this real quick. We're not going to put it on just yet, but we'll go ahead and put it together and test fit it. There you go, it'll sit right there, but it's not time to put it on yet. So now that that's good, let's move over here and we'll take a look at this bent piece. Now, aluminum parts are nice for a lot of times you can straighten them back out. This isn't a very serious bend, so I'm just going to put a little pressure on it here. It looks like I'm pushing hard, but I'm not. And it's straightened right out. The reason that worked is that wrench reached right to the bent point, so it made it pretty easy. Now we'll grab the standoff and we'll put the new standoffs in. There you go. So this is what it was supposed to look like. And it has a long and a short side. So the long side sticks out for the shock, the short side goes through the shock tower. Go ahead and put that on. And then tighten it up. Get it started here, and then a couple of wrenches will do it. Just put a little effort into it here and get her tightened down. Now don't overdo it, but make sure it's good and tight. A lot of vibration goes through this component. There we go. Now we can actually connect the shock to that. So slide it over the brace like that and go ahead and put the nut on. Beautiful. Snug it down. There we go. And now we had one bad arm. So we're going to go ahead and swap it out for a new one. And here's your part number for that. So that arm's going to go right in the top piece here on the hub carrier. Go ahead and run that in. Then you might as well snug this down while you're at it. Nut on the back. There we go. And snug it down. Oh, gotta have the right wrench there. There we go. Now, that being done, we can go ahead and attach it to the car side. Go ahead and run that in. Perfect. Now we'll go ahead and put our hinge pin in. And we're going to test fit that, make sure everything sits the way it's supposed to. I don't have the axle in yet on this side because we're not quite done with it anyway. So now we need to go ahead and get out that broken piece that went to the sway bar and connect it. Now this gets a ball in there, so squeeze the ball in with a pair of pliers, and the balls come in the kit. There's no front or back to it, so we can slide it straight in. This out of the way and slip it right into the slot and run the bolt through it. Pretty straightforward. And now we're going to go ahead and pinch it right onto the arm itself, and now the sway bar is connected. There we go. Now pulling the hinge pin back out, we go ahead and align it and get that axle in, and then slide it right back in place. Beautiful. Might as well go ahead and get the tire on it. Line it up. Now we're not going to torque this right now. We're going to just run it down by hand. We'll take the socket here and we'll snug it down, but I'm not going to torque it just yet. We'll do that when we're done. There we go. Just hand tight. Get the car back on the table. And now it's time to go ahead and put the front clip back on. Don't forget to line up that center drive line. There we go. Top plate will hold everything in place, so go ahead and snap it down and get all your screws started. Perfect. Now the front ones, you have to lift a little bit to get them lined up, and those are what's going to hold everything in place. So getting them lined up to start with will help a lot. Once you get them sucked down, That front end is on there. Now, do not over tighten with one of these power tools, guys. It's real important that you just run them down close and tighten them by hand, because it's really hard on the threads, and if you're screwing into plastic, you can melt the plastic or pull the threads out, and then you'll never get them tight again. So I know I say this a lot, but it's important that you remember that that is just an aid, not the tool that does the torquing. Now let's go ahead and put this front brace on, and we'll put the screws in the bottom to attach the differential to the chassis. Here's the other one. Real nice. Okay, swing the bumper around, and we've got 2 screws in the bottom here, and I know the camera angle's off a little bit, guys, but check it out. You can get them in there. You see the second one a lot better. Make sure you get lined up good, and it should go straight in. Nice and slow. This is into plastic, so don't hurry. There we go. Then we'll put the 2 in the bottom, and that'll secure the whole situation right there. Nice and slow, guys. Beautiful. And then we're going to go ahead and torque everything down by hand. And when you're going into plastic, don't overdo it. You can kind of feel it tighten up. That's where you want to stop. If you try and overdo it, you'll just pull the threads out of the plastic and you'll have to buy new parts. Good. Now we'll go over the top, make sure it's all torqued down good. We're making progress. Okay, so here is the new servo tray and radio box. So let's go ahead and get that in place. We'll have to tip this up to access it from the bottom. So hold it from behind, line up your first screw, and this will help hold it in place. And then go ahead and start screwing it down. Again, into plastic. And then torque them by hand. It seems like a pain in the neck, but it's really what you need to do it right. Now we're going to go ahead and fish the wiring through and then slip that servo into place. There you go. And we'll fix it down. Now there's 4 screws here. Again, into plastic, so real slow. Nice. Check the torque. Good. Nice and tight. Now we're going to go ahead and put the steering rod back in the top. So it's got 2 grommets in here. They sandwich in, so it's got space above and below. So get the grommets in on each side, and then we can slide the bar into place. Here we go. See how it swivels? Okay, it'll slip right through here. Lots of room. Get it through on top, line it up with the arms, and then start your screws. I recommend starting these by hand. You definitely want to make sure things are lined up good, and if you get them in with your hands, it helps with that. There we go. Now we can go ahead and run them down. Oh, yeah, darn it. Well, it's still working. I didn't torque it down much, but it did grab. Now we'll go ahead and hook up the steering linkages. This one's offset and it's really tight to turn, so just take an Allen wrench and you can twist it up. Get everything lined up that way. Slide the arm out, get them lined up, and then run your bolt through. Go ahead and tighten that down. This has a nut on the back, so that's good. Same thing on the other side. We're getting close. Tighten this one back down as well. Nice. There we have it. Nice and smooth, no issues. Okay, now we have to hook up the radio because you can't connect the servo until you center the radio and the servo so that it's in the center. So we'll go ahead and connect things. There we go. And the receiver's marked on the side which item plugs into what, and on the other side of it, it tells you the polarity, where the positive, negative, and the signal side are. It's right on the receiver. So you center up your servo. Make sure you turn off your radio once it's centered. So we'll give it a little test. Yeah, everything's working. Okay, and turn off the radio and then go for the servo horn. Go ahead and connect them. Now this is a aftermarket servo and it's slightly different, so I'm only able to use one of these arms at the moment. I had to order a kit with adjustable arms to fix to this servo, so right now it just has the one on it. Now we'll go ahead and put some servo tape on the receiver, and since the receiver was already in the car and has a gyro, it has to be put in the same orientation or you'll have to recalculate the radio. So make sure you put it in the same way it came out. There we go. Make sure it's fixed down good and tight. You don't want that coming loose. With a gyro, it'll add all kinds of problems. Put your antenna lead on, tuck in your wires, and snap your cap on. Beautiful. Now this box has a nice little hood pin. There we go. That'll hold it nice and tight. Everything works. Sweet. Suspension's all free. Let's get the bracing out from underneath it. And there you go. Project complete. Check that out. So there you go. There's the build for the DBXL-E front end damage. Now, we did have a little bit of an issue inside here, and it had nothing to do really with the build, but the new servo is just a little off center from the old one, so I'm going to have to order a couple of new truss rods. The connecting rods that connected to the servo saver, I was able to use one, but they're just a little bit off and they wouldn't connect, so that was the limitation there. Everything else went together pretty easily. The front end was a breeze. Lining up the drive lines, it was a little awkward at first, but everything kind of went together okay. And as you can see, guys, this could get all messed up and you could mix up parts, and it could be a nightmare if you don't pay attention. So when you take these things apart, make sure you keep track of where you put your screws. I like to use a little bowl that I put certain components in, and then when I've got complex components, I like to lay a towel out and lay them out in the order in which I took them out so that I can put them back in the opposite order. They go right back in place, and it helps keep things. You don't want to put a short screw where a long one needs to be. Let's just put it that way. So other than that, you know, this is a pretty straightforward thing. Your front differential, it really only took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 screws. The whole front end fell off the car. So that's not a lot. You know, 11 screws, pretty gravy. As far as that goes, we didn't actually break one of the arms. We broke all the internals, which tells me, and if you saw the wreck, I hooked it right in the arm. It should have broke the arm, but instead the arms on this thing are surprisingly tough, and it held up really nice. So now everything's back up and running, and this new servo is a bit faster. It had the right spline. Everything seemed to work. It's 65 kilograms. Should be enough to run it just fine. And that's pretty much it, guys. So just keep in mind that, yeah, these things are big, and yeah, it doesn't take a lot to break them. For example, I wasn't going all that fast when I hit the guy wire, but the thing is, that could have easily been somebody or a pet or something that would break. And that's bad. I mean, if you're going to run these, we need to run them in a respectable form. You got to get in an area where you can control it. If you're advanced in your abilities, you can run them in smaller spaces, but at the same time, you just have to be real careful with these because they accelerate pretty fast, but they don't stop as fast as the smaller cars usually. You know, when you have a little panic moment and you lock up, and it happens, there we go, and it happens, you're going to watch it run into whatever's in front of you, and that's a bad thing, guys. It's a terrible thing. So just be respectful if you can. Try and run them in the proper locations, and just remember, these things aren't that difficult to work on. The manual is a real help to you. It shows you where everything is, where everything goes, what size screws go where. They can be a little bit of a pain to decipher, but the information's generally there, so you can find it. Also, I'm not the only YouTuber out here. There's a lot of guys that will show you how to break that down and put it back together just like that. And so you're never really alone as long as you got internet. So that's all good. So hey guys, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. It's awesome when you do, and it makes us feel pretty good around here too. You know, this is just one thing that I'm trying to demonstrate. If you've got mods or any comments that you can add, please leave it in the comments down below and help others along the way. Hey guys, I'm AJ with AJ Jam Studios saying, keep wrenching, guys.